Hey everybody, Henry Finn here with Videography Academy, and in this episode I am excited to talk about value-based pricing. Now, this is something I wanted to chime in on because I've seen this issue talked about and debated in different Facebook groups, and I have my own thoughts. Now, the number one thing about value-based pricing that I want to talk about is I want to make it clear that while it is fine to search for the best pricing and profit available to you as a freelancer, I think some of the ways that I've seen people discuss value-based pricing is a little bit worrisome to me because it's putting emphasis on the wrong part of the equation, which is the money part. Now, I know that sounds like a contradiction because I'm saying you want to make as much money as possible. But for me, my personal philosophy is that I always remember that whenever I have a client, I'm in service of them. Right? Without that client, I don't have a job. Without that client, I don't have a way to make money at all. And so I'm always looking for long-term relationships whenever I bring on a new client, because a long-term relationship not only helps your revenue stream by giving you more consistent income and referrals and stuff, but it also gives you greater satisfaction, and it makes your life a little easier. You could do less sales when you have more repeat business, right? And I think the problem I've seen with some of the people on the way that they're approaching this value-based pricing is that they are not putting their client first at all. They're just putting themselves first. And they're saying, essentially, so what some people are saying is that I just want to charge you as much as possible. So for me, even when I'm charging, a lot, I'm always thinking, well, what am I delivering? How can I make sure that regardless of the price point, what I'm delivering is something that they're going to be very happy with? Okay, because I've had clients where, for instance, they paid me, way more than what I would have accepted. But they were super happy at the end of it because I made sure that I gave them the value that they were seeking. So when I think about value-based pricing, I actually think the value is based on your delivery. Not the value of what they're going to make with that. Because honestly, every business owner is in their right to look for the best profit margins possible as well. You know what I mean? If you're gonna make a product video for someone and they're gonna make millions of dollars selling that product, you don't have the right to be like, oh, you're making millions of dollars, you need to pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars. No, you only get that right if you're sacrificing something, right? Like, let's say it's a Kickstarter and you're going to give them a discount so you could ask for a percentage of the sales. Or let's say you're going to over deliver and do all these extra things that you would normally want to charge for, so you should get a piece of the sales. But for you to say like, oh, I'm just going to piggyback off of your hard work developing your product and demand more for it. I mean, it's like, imagine if you walked into a restaurant and you're dying of thirst, right? You just came in from the desert. You thought you were going to die. You desperately need some water. And then you walk into a restaurant and normally the water is free. But because they see that you're thirsty, they're like, well, you know what? For you, the water is going to be $10. Right? Would that make you feel good? Or if you hired a plumber and you had a faucet that was broken and you desperately needed it to be fixed and you can't fix it, they're the only ones with that skill set to do it, and they look at it and they say, you know what? It's going to be $10,000. And then you're like, what are you talking about? Everybody else charges $1,000 for the same service. And they're like, yeah, but you need it now and it's worth more to you. Does that make any sense to you? No, you would be upset. Okay? So all I'm saying is, do not say to your client, I charge based on value. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there are so many people who could do your job and at a different price point. So I think people get this convoluted idea of what they, quote, deserve. You know what I mean? For you to deserve more, you actually need to deliver more. Okay? So again, even if you're getting paid really well for what you're doing, you still need to put your customer first and make sure that you're giving them a great experience, okay? The other thing about value-based pricing is that if you lead with that, first of all, you're signaling to your client that you don't care about them, that you only care about their money. You're also kind of muddying up the true value of your work, right? And I think the best way to kind of have an honorable way of dealing with value-based pricing is, as I've taught before, you want to get the price that the client is willing to pay out of them first, if possible. And the reason why is it'll help you calibrate if they are under what you would want to charge, then you know that they're probably not the right client for you. Or if they're paying more, then you could be excited and then you could think about, well, how can you make sure that you give them what they want, And, that only comes with you knowing your true value, right? So every time I talk with a potential client, I want to know exactly what the project is, what the concept is, what kind of effort level and labor is going to be required. And then I put that into an estimate internally in terms of how many days or weeks or whatever, plus hard costs. And so I always know what a project is worth to me. Okay. Now, if they offer a number or say a number that is lower than what it's worth to me, then I have to look for another reason to do it. Like, let's say it's for a nonprofit, or it's a cause I care about, or there's a really cool kind of benefit or networking on the other end. Or it's just something I really want to do, right? Creatively, maybe I have creative control, and so that's exciting. Or you work out, again, like some sort of profit sharing thing where, I've said to some clients in the past, like, hey, this is way cheaper than I would normally charge. You can give me some stock options. I've gotten stock options before. I've gotten, free product. I've, worked out other deals to make it worth my time, or I've just said no. And, if they say a number that's higher than what you're willing to take, then you take that. Right? So I think like the practice of looking at how much somebody else is supposed to make and then you asking for a bigger piece of the pie based on that is, to me, a little bit disingenuous because they have their own needs and their own requirements to be successful as a business, which means that they do need to make as much money as possible as well. Now, look, if it's like Nike, right, and they clearly have a ton of money and they're trying to rip you off or something, then of course, then that goes back to knowing what your price is, what you need to charge. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is that there's nothing wrong with wanting to make as much money as possible, charging as much as possible, but if that is your first thought, then you are doing it in the wrong order, because your first thought needs to be, how do I put my client first? And that is the core of building a long-term relationship, because just like any relationship, if people genuinely have a concern for your well-being and your success, you feel that, you know what I mean? And the clients are the same way. If you only have a concern with how much you're going to make and you're really selfishly looking at it that way, they're going to feel that as well. And so for me, the best relationships that I've had that are long-term are because I've always put them first. Even if they paid me, well over my asking price, they were always, given the product that they were happy with, and even over delivering however I can. And that's really the main thing I want to say. So I think, for a lot of people out there, when they're trying to figure out how to price their projects, I talk about that in my book. I talk about it in the course. So, you could check it out. But again, when it comes to value-based pricing, the value is based on what you're delivering, not how much they're going to make. Okay? Thanks.